Good evening. Welcome to the Vineland Board of Education special budget meeting. Roll call, please. Mr. Mustarell.
Ms. Acosta?
Present.
Mr. Fiocchi?
Here.
Mr. Holmes?
Present.
Mr. Medio?
Here.
Mr. Sobrano? Present. Ms. Spinelli?
Here.
Mr. Ulrich?
Present.
Mr. English?
Here. In compliance with the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law, commonly referred to as the Sunshine Law, the Vineland Board of Education has caused notice and posting of this meeting to be sent to the following: announcing time and place thereof, agenda, etc. The Daily Journal, the Press of the Atlantic City, the Grapevine, the Clerk for the City of Vineland, and the Administrative Office Public Bulletin Board. At this time, please rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Mustarell, do we have a resolution for executive session this evening?
We do.
Do I have a motion?
Please, guys, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you please read it? I'm sorry.
Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the City of Vineland School District will convene into executive session on Wednesday, March 13, 2019, for the following reasons outlined in NJSA 10-4-12. Discussion is VEA negotiations, update, and any matters falling within the attorney-client privilege to the extent that the confidentiality is required in order for the attorney to exercise his ethical duties as a lawyer.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Acosta?
Yes.
Mr. Fiocchi?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Medio?
Yes.
Mr. Sobrano?
Yes.
Ms. Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. English?
Yes. At this time, we're going to convene an executive session. We'll be back shortly. Thank you. Okay, we are back. Thanks for being patient as well. At this time, we're going to open up the mic for public comment on agenda items. And as always, please limit your comments to 5 minutes. Mr. Mustarell?
Tara Myerson?
Can you hear me? Oh, okay. All right, I'm Tara Myerson. No stranger to the mic. 2126 Frederick Court. I am a Vineland resident. Not only a Vineland resident, but I'm a teacher as well. And I'm kind of here to hit you with another dose of reality. Day in the life of a classroom teacher. We all know that not all students learn in the same ways. Not all students can learn concepts easily. Not all students can be at the top of their class. It's just a reality that we have students who struggle. Sometimes they just can't grasp easily onto curriculum. They have a hard time with reading in general. They find writing or math difficult and daunting. Fortunately, for as long as I remember anyway, and this is my 11th year teaching, we've had resources to assist these struggling students who didn't qualify for special education services. We call these resources basic skills teachers. And we have them now. We had them 11 years ago when I started teaching, and even further back than that. In fact, when I was hired as a basic skills, which was called RTI, at Veterans Memorial Middle School. For 5 years, I taught the Read 180 program. It was a fabulous intervention program, and I saw lots and lots of student achievement. Maybe not at the same pace as other students, but definitely achievement. And at the same time, we also had basic skills teachers in the building who gave additional support to, we call Tier 1 students, and in small groups and in-class support. And again, we were able to reach all students. It was like the perfect plan for students to really achieve. But then poof, it was gone. Poof. One sad day, I was called to the office and I was told that basic skills was going away, it was being cut. And just like that, those struggling students were left hanging the next year. They lost those extra resources, and I know they struggled. Those students were now at even more of a disadvantage, which we know potentially, definitely affects their future in high school and college. So now history is repeating itself. I'm an elementary teacher, and I see the same thing happening. Basic skills teachers are on the chopping block. We're going to go from 7 to 2. And yet again, we are cutting support for students that need it the most. So we know Vineland's a Title I school, and I know this means that we have a program and funding in place to raise student achievement. And it's available to us because 40% of our student population is low-income households. Student achievement is the key word, the goal of that Title I program. So with all the cuts being presented, you know, in this budget, I just don't see how that student achievement is really possible. And a solution, moving forward, start putting as much focus on struggling students as we do our high-achieving students. Let's not deprive our students with academical difficulties of resources. We certainly don't deprive our overachieving students. And so in closing, I just want you to know I discuss these matters daily, you know, with my colleagues, and quite a few of them ask me if even coming up here is going to make a difference. And I told them, I said, if I didn't come up, you know, if I didn't believe it would, I wouldn't be up here. You know, I just really hope that, you know, each and every board member here really just thinks for themselves, and really, you know, if you care about student achievement, we need a budget that gets back those basic skills teachers and gives all students a fair chance at success. And just to close one more time, Dr. Gruccio, I know the hours that you put in, it's no joke. Kudos to you for this budget. And I know you don't like a lot of what's in there, I do know. However, I think this is the most detrimental thing. I think it's just not, that student achievement piece won't be there if we don't have those really important basic skills teachers there. And I just, history cannot repeat itself yet again. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Myerson.
Harry Myers?
Good evening, members of the board and Dr. Gruccio. Mr. English had asked us to find ways to save money for our district. I do realize that we have a $14 million shortfall, and I do have a few ideas that I hope you consider when trying to balance this budget. First and foremost, I do believe that our AMSA program is very important to our advanced students. I firmly believe that it is essential to challenge our students. However, I believe the program needs to be revamped. This program is currently housed at Johnstone School. I believe there are approximately 200 students who attend this program. Now, the maximum capacity at this school is well over 500 students. If the building is underutilized, I believe that these students should continue this program at their home school or possibly another school. This would allow Johnstone to be repurposed as an elementary school once again. This would help save money in our budget and help with our class size issue. I also believe that these children should not receive MacBook computers. This is an expense that does not seem necessary. The children from this program are also taking field trips that are quite expensive. A tremendous amount of money is also being spent on this program. This money could be allocated for other things. I was talking to a few other people, and I found out too that over at one of the middle schools, the Mac computers are being distributed to all the students, and I believe that Mac computers are at least $1,000, where at my school, at the Palo School, we do have Chromebooks, and I think they're around $200 to $300, so it is a big expense. I also believe that we could do something about our classroom supply budgets. In my opinion, the average teacher's supply budget is about $1,000. Now, although that number may seem high, it is essential for student learning. In order to fund these budgets, we could possibly ask for parental support in securing these classroom items. I know that the big box stores run promotions throughout the summer where parents can buy school supplies for about 25 cents. We could also have benefits or possibly fundraisers to help defer some of these costs. This alone could save several $100,000. I do realize these suggestions will not eliminate our entire shortfall, but hopefully it can eliminate some of that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Myers.
Ronald Walker.
Good evening. My name is Ronald Walker. Lives at 618B Pine Street, Vineland, New Jersey. Also a very involved community activist. I come here with several facts today. To Dr. Gruccio, Mr. Frangipani, and to Mr. Fry, who runs the central, who was the leaders of our central administration, to Mr. English, who is the president, Mr. Ulrich, vice president, Ms. Acosta, Mr. Fiocchi, Ms. Spinelli, and to Mr. Sabrana and Mr. Medio and Mr. Holmes, who will vote and make decisions that's going to affect people's lives for the rest of their lives. I understand that we're 14-point-something million in debt. There's three questions. How did we get here? Who's responsible for us being here? And how long did we know we was going to get here? Through this $14 million, let's look at what has been done to help. I believe that part of the reason why we're here. We spent $1.3 million on the turf. We spent also in getting this, the Amstead program, which cost about $250,000 just to bus some students in, that I believe that we could have did away with. So we look at this situation, but the one that's going to take the blame of it, who you want to cut, some of the cuts are cafeteria aides, playground aides, and bus attendants. And in that cut, it only comes out to about $2-point-something million. But my question is, the lower part has to take the blame for what we're going through, which I do not think is fair. Also, what is the solutions? Are we bidding out our medical benefits, or are we using the same person? Are we bidding out our transportation insurance? And also, I don't have nothing against sports, but we have put millions of dollars in sports programs, but yet we're willing to cut books, we're willing to take children's safety. So I think what needs to be done is that we need to look at this opinion, and I hope that we will look at quality over quantity. We have Insight that we pay $5-point-something million a year, whose performance is less than 90% filling rate. So with these decisions, when I called the state myself, because there's two sides to every story, and then there's the truth. What is the real truth? What can we do to get the truth out? And I hope that when you make these decisions, to every board member, to central administration, that when you make these decisions, that I hope that you're making them from your heart and not for what you think. But listen, the people that you're going to cut are people that got families as well, that need benefits just like you do. When I'm sure we got some staff members here that will, if they get privatized, that has up to 24, 23 years, they may lose everything. I'm sure all of you that work, you would not want to get to the close to where you are and then say everything is done. All the time you put in is worthless. So I say to you today, I'm not here to fight you, but I will challenge you. I've been coming to these meetings for 20 years. I have been an advocate on some of the big issues when they wanted to get rid of after-school programs. When the 504 program, special education program, needed to be done, we had in part on that. And I will say this, I'm not going to fight your decisions, but I will challenge your decisions wholeheartedly. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Mr. DeSanto, if someone would like to address any of his questions, Can we do that this evening?
The question, when the presentation is made,
Okay.
will be addressed.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anyone else? Mr. Mustarell?
No, we don't.
Would anyone else like to address the board? Okay, seeing none.
Has to be the budget.
It has to be budget-related.
At the end.
That's budget-related. Food service. Thank you, and please state your name.
My name is Antoinette Ocasio. I worked for, thank you. I worked for food service for, this is my 24th year. Well, I never thought we would come to this point where I would be faced with losing everything I worked for. I've been on like a 5-year plan, 4-year plan, 3-year plan, and now I'm faced with losing everything that I've worked for. And my co-workers in my food service family, which I consider family because we are, all we're asking for is for you guys to realize that when you get rid of us, that you're getting rid of all of our health insurance, and most of us are in our mid-50s. I'm 57. We're in our mid-50s, 40s, 50s, 60s, where we need health insurance right now. You're asking us to bear the burden of your $14 million deficit, and I really don't think that's fair. We've worked long, we've worked hard, we're good workers, and we're productive members of this community. And if you're asking us to give up all our health insurance and everything, and I'm sure our taxes are going to go up also, how are we all going to afford this? I'm a little nervous, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm just asking you to reconsider all this. We've worked long, we've worked hard. We take our jobs seriously. We love the children. So please, whatever you can do, we will give some, whatever. Just please reconsider. We're good people, and we're productive members of this community, but we can't be productive members of this community if we're forced to find alternative health care, which we can't afford. Jobs, which we probably could get, but how can we get jobs with health care? Most of us are here for the health care. So I'm just asking you to reconsider getting rid of food service. Thank you.
Thank you. If anyone else does want to come up to speak, I need you to fill out a yellow form, please. They're located in the back. That way we have the correct spelling and name of everyone. Ms. Salerno's in the back there. She does have them in hand, just so we know. I think we know this next person, so I'm surprised she didn't fill one out.
Vicki Miller. I'm going to talk about privatization. I was a union president. I'm going to tell you right now, that's not the answer. You have dedicated people, not making that great, but like she says, the benefits are number one. When you leave here, you're going to have, they leave a privatization, you're going to have nothing. 24 years, 20 years, 10 years means something. They're not getting the most money in the district, they're probably the lowest in the district. But they have that. They have dedication to our students. They know them. They're going to eventually pick up and leave, and they won't be in the system. Even if you think going privatize them, they're going to be back in the school system. A lot of them not. A lot of them have no choice. Their age is against them. And what did they work for? I think you should reconsider it. Thank you.
Hi. I'm a senior at Vineland High School. I've been there all 4 years.
Can you please state your name, please?
Bree Malkiel.
Thank you.
I understand both sides of the story, and I understand that you want students to achieve. I personally believe that taking away teachers that made a huge impact from us, even bus drivers or lunch aides or playground aides, when they sat with a child who didn't have somebody to play with, they made a big impact, and I don't think taking away their job is going to help them achieve. As a suggestion for a budget, I think maybe joining clubs that have a powerful meaning with other clubs that have a powerful meaning, creating a bigger positive community would be great. I understand that some clubs are failing in Vineland High School, and that's the lack of students being involved. I think if students were more educated, they would be more involved, but I think creating a bigger community, joining them together, would be a very good positive thing to do. I'm saying a lot, and I'm sorry. Another thing is, I believe that some advisors for clubs at Vineland High School, I'm not saying that they don't do much, but most of us have a leadership power. Most of us run the clubs ourselves. Challenge our leadership, help us achieve, put us in a bigger group, combine clubs, will help with budget. That's my suggestion. Thank you.
Hello, my name is April Stevenson Kender. I am a Vineland High School biology teacher, but I'm also the vice president for Maple Run Homeowners Association. I'm also a representative for VEA and a representative for CCEA. So you can see that many a times when we come here to speak to you, it's because we would like to see a resolution to some of our problems. As a homeowner association vice president, I wonder, has the idea of changing the amount of taxes for the school board been addressed? I just came in because I did have a CCEA meeting, and I wasn't sure if there is going to be a raising of the school board taxes. From what I understand, and this may not be true, but I have not remembered since I've owned my home and since being an HOA member that there was a significant tax increase when it came to the school board. Another thing, and of course when I say this, I'm saying this as the vice president of an HOA. Another reason that I would like to see many things change, I hate to say that we do not have dedicated people who are serving our lunches, not dedicated people who are cleaning our schools, and not having dedicated people who are bringing our kids to school. It may not be a big thing for you as a board member, but I remember my son coming home and telling me about his most favorite person who happened to be not a teacher, which I am, but a school cafeteria worker. A woman who helped him each day to make sure he had the right food, to say something nice to them. I'm not saying that maybe they're teaching them calculus, maybe they're not teaching them science, but they are teaching them how to say thank you. They are teaching them how to appreciate someone who is doing a job many a times thankless to the administration. So many a times, I'm not sure if you said this already or if you have thanked the people who have kindly cleaned our schools, cleaned our cafeterias, and served our children, but I want to thank them because they have done so much, not just for my son, but for sons and daughters of the Vineland area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Linda Fields, and I'm speaking today as a Vineland resident and also as the wife of a reverend. And I know that you guys are in leadership positions, and one of the things that I just ask that before you make any final decisions, you think about what your role is as a leader and who you are representing. One of the teachings that we do in our own home is to think about the teachings of Jesus and how he always met the need of the people. You have a legacy, you have a flock, you have a group of people that you are here to represent. And before you make any decisions, I pray that you pray, because you have to think about what your legacy is and what you're leading behind. Think about the flock, think about the people that you are representing. And I just have something for you. And it says, know well the condition of your flocks and give attention to your herds. For riches do not last forever, and does not a crown endure all generations. So when you make your decision tonight, when you think about what's best for your flocks, I pray you think about the legacy you're leaving and what is the best for the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else this evening? If you did not fill a yellow form out, please do so, just so we can make sure we follow the proper protocol of everyone's name being spelled properly, etc. Thank you. Do any board members have anything to say at this point? Mr. Medio.
Just one quick comment, Mr. English, before we get into the budget presentation. Chris Jennings resigned from the board yesterday, and I just would like to thank him for his service to the Vineland School District. He was a very conscientious board member. He tried to hear both sides of controversial issues. He took his committee meetings very seriously, and he asked probing questions. He was always trying to get the best outcome for the district. And in closing, I'd like to wish him luck in any future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Medio. At this time, we have our budget presentation from Mr. Mustarell. Is it best for board members to sit out there, Dr. Guccio, you think? Yes.
At least a few of us, maybe.
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Scott Mustarell. I'm the interim business administrator, also the assistant business administrator. I'll be presenting the 2019-20 proposed district budget. Tonight we'll go over the budgeting process, historical summaries, proposed revenues, proposed appropriations, proposed tax levy, and the anticipated reductions. Principals, supervisors, and department head meetings. David Hart, our principal accountant, meets with the principals. I meet with the supervisors and department heads. We review their budgets and personnel to ensure all positions are captured. The administrative budget meetings. The administrative meetings team has had many meetings over the past 5 months to address the shortfall. We collaborate with principals and supervisors, department heads, to review ideas for feasibility and to receive their input. The Finance Committee meetings. For transparency, we relate all the information to the Finance Committee and then give them a copy of the entire budget. For board review, we also meet with each board member to review the budget highlights. The cuts we introduce at the end of the presentation will be a review of what we discussed during that budget process. You're looking at a picture graph of our enrollment by year over the past 5 years. It's been pretty stagnant over the past 5 years, even considering the loss of students to charter schools and VOTEC and whatnot. These are the revenues. We have a 5-year look. You'll notice that by the dates, there's B's and there's A's. A's are the audited figures. B's are the budgeted figures. The most recent column, the most recent data is in the first column. So we're looking at a budget of $167,101,367. So we're down significantly from last year, as you can see. It's trending down. This is a picture of the revenue from the last slide. Lets you see how much we are dependent upon aid, which is the blue bar. That's state aid. The red bar is the tax levy. The green bar is the use of fund balance. The yellow bar is other general fund, other revenues. The light blue is Medicaid, and the brown is adjusted to prior year. So as you can see, the lion's share comes from state aid. Next in line would be our tax levy, which is significantly smaller. Appropriation trends. This is a look at the last 3 years. As you can see, the A is for audited in 2017-18, and the B is for budget in 2018-19 and 19-20. The first column is the most recent data. It's what we're asking for next year. Regular programs are $38 million. Special education programs, $18.9 million. Sports services, which include basic skills, bilingual, child study team, guidance, nurse, library, school office. It's $25.2 million. Tuition looks to be around $7.5 million. Administrative support is $10.2 million. Facilities and plant, $12.4 million. Security, $1.6. Transportation, $12.4. Benefits, $39, excuse me. Student clubs and sports, $1.6. Capital outlay, $0. But as you can see, everything is trending downwards. This is a picture of the last slide. Basically, the whole right side of this picture graph, this pie graph, shows that those expenses, those appropriations, are in the classroom. So even given the shortfall, we've managed to have over half our expenses stay in the classroom, which we're proud of, given the $14 million shortfall we were originally looking at. This is selected appropriations, regular programs, special education, sports services, and so on. It's a 3-year look. So the red bar is the proposed budget, the gray bar is the current year, and the blue bar is the audited amounts from 17-18. And as you can see, they're trending downward as well. This is the tax comparison. For 1920, we're looking at $3.8 billion as our assessed valuations. The average home assessment will be $159,619. We're proposing a tax levy of $24,703,562, which would be a tax rate of 0.644. That's an increase from last year of 0.022, which is 2.2 cents. The average cost to the average homeowner would be $35 annually. This is a bar graph of what you just saw. It shows how we're trending up in tax levy. which is really what we need to do. Violent tax levy, trends and projections. The important part of this slide is to show that the city is on a calendar year while we're on a fiscal year. So if you look over to the left, you'll see 2, 3, and 4% increases. The actual values, according to the city, would be 1.96, 1.96, 2.44, and 3.39. So the 3.39 is what the city actually feels in the calendar year when we're asking for 4%. So with the state computations, the state says our fair share of tax levy should be $64.4 million. We're proposing $24.7 million. So the state says we're below the state's requirement by $39.7 million. What does that mean? The state believes Vineland is not paying their fair share and should be raising an additional $39.7 million in taxes. This is basically how we got there with the $14 million shortfall. Between what we are using next year, which is $2.2 million, and what we were able to use last year, which is roughly $12.2 million, it leaves us about $10 million differential in fund balance to use as a revenue. We also have increases in salaries and benefits, which would be 2.25 and 1.5 approximately, respectively, giving us our $13.7 million. Proposed personnel reductions. Administrative and support, we're looking at a nursing supervisor, 2 clerical positions, 4 child study team members, 1 energy use advisor, maintenance supervisor, transportation supervisor, 1/4 of 1, a social worker, a computer technician, 4 outsourced 504 aides, and grounds worker. Maintenance, we're looking at 6 building maintenance workers, 1 carpenter, 1 clerical position, and 1 substitute building maintenance worker. It's important to remember that we're doing our best as a district to fill these positions with existing personnel. In other words, we have retirements, so these people will have somewhere to go, hopefully. That's the goal. Transportation, 10 school bus drivers, 55 school bus attendants. At the school level, we're looking at 18 basic skills teachers, 13.5 playground cafeteria aides, 7 elementary guidance counselors, 2 elementary instrumental lesson teachers, 1 special education teacher, 3 high school teachers, 1 instructional coach, 1 principal. The non-salary reductions, we're able to reduce charter school tuition by $1 million, given the ASSA figures on October 15th. We're able to reduce the inclusion amount for ECPA, which is our early childhood program, by $107,000. We're reducing our contribution to the food service program, which is in an enterprise fund, by $150,000. Synergistics, that was our energy consultant. The contracts has lapsed, so we're able to save $259,000 in our budget there. We're reducing our painting budget by $300,000. Other maintenance non-salary costs by $300,000. Courtesy busing at the high school will save us $150,000. We have shared services that we figure on fuel is going to save us $50,000. On auto parts should save us about $25,000. The supervisor budgets took a cut of $791,804. The impact program, while it will still exist, we worked with the Inspira team to save ourselves $120,000. Miscellaneous administrative expenses, $108,000. And capital projects, $1,923,000. Non-salary reductions at the school level. High school subs will be limited and outsourced to 200. We should save $217,000. The middle school will also be outsourced. We should save $175,500. Athletics, we're reducing by $40,592. And the co-curricular club stipends will be reduced by $30,960. Proposed non-salary increases. We'll have an increase. We're budgeting for an increase from the VOTEC and charter school tuitions of $840,500. Special education, one-to-one nurses will increase by $336,000. Transportation contracted services increase will be roughly $167,000. And we're lease purchasing special education vehicles for $162,000. In summary, we're trying to meet state expectations. There was no tax increase during the Abbott years. The Abbott district was replaced in 2007 by the New Jersey School Development Authority. We had no tax increase from 2008 to 2015. The state expected that all previous Abbott districts would have started raising taxes when the funding formula changed in 2008. This is evident in the fact that the state budget software shows our local fair share is at $64.4 million, and the tax levy we're proposing is $24,703,562. In a meeting with the Commissioner of Education, he questioned, "If you don't provide for your students, why should we?" VBO recent nominal school tax increases. 2015-16 was 2%, 16-70 was 2%, 17-18 was 2%, 18-19 was 3%. So we're attempting to satisfy the state's expectations by raising taxes. We have utilized all our reserves in the past few years, maintenance and capital. This also satisfies another one of the state's expectations. The state has an issue, or had an issue, with our excess fund balance we had been generating. That's why we utilized not only the fiscal year 16-17 audited excess fund balance, which we're required to do, in creating this year's budget, 18-19, but also carried over a portion of the 17-18 projected fund balance directly into the fiscal year 18-19 budget. Such is the reason our fund balance utilized in fiscal year 18-19 is over $12 million, as previously discussed in this presentation. We purposely used up the excess fund balance from fiscal year 17-18 in 18-19 to close the shortfall gap and to show the state that we're trying to adhere to their expectations once again. This graph you're looking at is a county graph. It shows the districts, the municipalities, and the percentages of school tax in their overall tax. Vineland has an average residential property value of $159,000 and change, and 22.1% of their average property tax is school tax. Whereas if you look closely to Shiloh, for instance, who has a similar average residential property value, a similar average property tax, but their percentage of school tax is actually 46.5%. This was taken from the Jersey Department of Community Affairs. The next chart you're looking at is Vineland Board of Education versus what the city and county tax increases look like. If you'll notice, in 2018, we raised 2.3 cents, while municipal raised 6.9, and county raised 4.9. In 2017, we raised 1.8 cents, municipal 5.8 cents, county 1.8 cents. 2016, we raised 1.5 cents, municipal was 0.002, and county was 7.7 cents. So all in all, we raised 5.6 cents over the past 3 years, while municipal raised 12.9 cents and county raised 14.4 cents. So if they're doing it, I think we can do it too. Final thoughts. Not only will the 4% tax increase, which is 2.2 cents, help us with the fiscal year 19-20 budget, it'll also have a compounding effect on future years. Without the tax increase, we would only have to add to the already devastating cuts by $237,534 for every 1% not raised, which is the equivalent of $9.88 per year on the average residential property value. That's 82 cents a month. Reducing the tax increase would imply that we are more interested in cutting additional jobs and possible future programs than asking for a viable tax increase. It is important to remember and understand that with every new year, before we even start the budget process, we are looking at a shortfall between 3 and 4 million due to the salary and benefit increases. This is one more reason why these tax increases are so important. I hope we can count on your support for the budget as it is presented. Thank you. If anybody has any questions, I can answer them.
Can you just give us a second to get organized, because they took some
Absolutely,
notes?
absolutely.
First, do any board members have any questions for Mr. Mustarello? I just want to thank you and your staff. I know this process hasn't been easy, so...
Thank you.
You know my feeling about tax increases, and I understand the spin here. And coming in here tonight, I was thinking that 3%. We had an interesting discussion in our emergency finance meeting, and there's no guarantee that if we do a 4%, a 5%, a 6% tax increase, that we will be getting any additional funding, as we know. I would have loved to have seen something in writing. We're looking at tax increase, and then we're looking at budget line items as what I am doing. I'm speaking just for myself. There are many things on the line item side that I do not like, and as other board members have reached out and told me as well. When we're looking at different positions being cut, if we were to do a 6% and a 5%, those positions were still going to be cut, correct?
6% and 5%, I mean, you're still looking at that increases by 237,000 approximately. So, I mean, it depends on...
A lot of people ask me,
it's not a fair question. I'd have to know the specifics in order to answer that question.
Realistically, a lot of people say, how high do we have to raise taxes to save jobs? And it's a pretty big number.
It is. It is.
And you have showed us how behind we are, and realistically, we will never catch up to that in my lifetime. But it's pretty fair to say.
I will say that the administrative team has worked very hard, like I said, over the past 5 months to present the best possible budget with education in mind, given the lack of monetary resources that we are currently facing. So this is an educationally based budget.
And this evening, just so the public knows, but also my fellow board members, if I ask you or Dr. Gruccio, what is this board approving this evening?
The board is approving the tax levy amount and the total dollar value of the budget. They're not approving individual line items. They're just approving the total amount and the tax levy.
So when we use the word fluid document, as we have in the past, things can change.
Fluid document is a fair assessment.
Fair assessment, okay. So my fellow board members, you understand what I'm saying? Mr. Medio.
When do we have the board meeting where we can make recommendations to change this budget?
Well, we have a meeting tentatively scheduled for April 29th that's the budget hearing. This is just a preliminary budget approval, so we could submit it to the county. I would think in between there, you would have a finance committee, or maybe bring it up at the next actual board meeting as a board agenda item.
What I would like to see happen, if indeed 4 of us can sit in a finance meeting, if no board member has any questions or issues, then currently we're 8 board members. We're down 1 now. So I don't see us filling that position in the near future because we're focusing on budget. Now, if indeed we can have possibly 2 budget meetings, 2 finance meetings, 4 and 4 is 8. So I think we can either set something up. I don't want to overwhelm you with a 3-hour meeting, but if you would like to, on a Tuesday and a Thursday, do something like that, I don't want to wait till the 29th, that's for sure.
I don't have a problem with that. We could set it up with Dr. Gruccio's office if she doesn't have a problem with it.
Mr. Fiocchi, you're our finance chair. I want everyone to have a chance to speak their mind because although we don't like a lot of the things in here, we're backed into the corner, but we should have all took notes tonight. We had some interesting solutions, as I asked for last week. By no means am I looking to close the AMSA program, but I have talked with Mr. Fry and Dr. Gruccio pretty extensively about my thoughts on the AMSA program, going back to the way it was. I think what we need here are more home runs versus bunts and singles. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but I'm looking for bigger ticket items that possibly can save some staff members. I know there was discussion, one of our cafeteria workers came up and she was on a plan, 543, and now in limbo. That's no way to run a business. And I know Dr. Rossi has been working to address this, and there's 2 perceptions out there. I believe there's a union side that's saying one thing. I just want to make sure that it gets clear for the record for what Dr. Rossi is saying. So can you please address that?
Yes, I don't want to assume that it is obvious, but to us in personnel it is. Anyone in that category, 22, 23, 24, is first on the radar, has been in the office. I believe almost everyone in that category. We've had communication. There are some folks who don't realize that they can retire. Not that they have to. We're talking about all the options, and the sooner that the board can make some decisions. My discussions with Dr. Gruccio were that there will be attrition in a large district. That is the one advantage we have. Between the time we settle this budget, and I realize it is fluid, from the time we settle this budget until August 30th, we will do our best to place qualified, impacted people in those positions. We have talked about the paraprofessional exam, which qualifies someone to be a classroom aide. We have talked about who might retire in security, who might retire wherever, and who is qualified. We've begun gathering resumes. We've begun talking to people with those years of experience. It is all the effort we are giving right now is toward that end, to make the veteran people in those categories that have planned 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to be placed in next year's budget through attrition, retirement, and resignation. And those things are coming in now. They're coming in slow. As you know from our 3 meetings in August, I bring people to you in late August because people who have departed don't know that they're getting that job elsewhere until their board approves them. So I hold out hope that the veteran people who have interest, who are not choosing to retire, can be placed.
I have a question.
Yes.
I think it would be beneficial if we knew what we needed to increase the taxes to save these positions. You know, if it's 8%, 10%, just to have a number to look at and then do the math.
Mr. English,
Yes.
can you, do we know, what is our banked cap amount? I know that statutorily, the state allows us, or caps us at 2%, but there is bank cap for previous years where we didn't increase taxes. Do we know how much can we increase?
I believe our banked cap is like 36 million, if I'm not mistaken, 39 million. You're welcome to.
Okay, so.
So you got 39 million in the bank.
Did you get that? 39 million.
39 million?
No. Wait, no. We're talking about the bank cap.
Because we're so low and behind the 8 ball on our fair share, we're allowed to raise our bank cap that high.
To how, I'm sorry, to how much?
39 million, I believe, is the number.
39 million?
39 million, I believe, is the number.
Okay.
I believe that last year we reached 1% back into the cap with a 3% tax increase. So this year, since we're allowed to, we're reaching back 2%. So I don't think it's possible within the statute to raise $39 million today.
I will double check the figure, I promise you.
Okay.
I looked at the figure today from the state software, and that's the number I read off the state software, but I will double check it, and I will email everybody tomorrow.
Well, I believe we're upside down by that number.
No, we are upside down by 39 million.
Yeah.
The state says that we should have contributed over the years an additional 39 million. So we are short our fair share of 39 million. But I know that statutorily, we can only raise taxes by a certain percentage based upon banked cap. So I was curious to know how much can we raise?
I will have that information tomorrow, but I'm pretty sure of my number.
You know, just a little history too, when the board went from a April election to a November election, there was a caveat that the budget would no longer be voted on by the public. So what was happening in those years, we'd return a, let's say, a 0% flat budget, no tax increase. The public would vote it down, and then it would go to city council, and then they would cut our budget. So 2 city councils are responsible for cutting our budget during that time period. So the caveat was when we switched to an election format with the general election, that rule to let the public vote on the budget was done away with, and that we were allowed to do 2%. And then based upon that, every year thereafter, you can go backwards into what they call the capped balance.
Like I said, I'm looking at the state software right now. I just logged in, and the bank cap available for 2021 is 36.9 million.
Well, that's impossible to raise. It's not even, no one has the money here to do that.
Tax levy. I'll check.
Does anyone have any other questions on that? And I do apologize. I had a crazy day in my business. And as you were presenting, under proposed personnel reductions, we have administrative and support, and then we have maintenance. I saw a couple things on the administrative side, but I thought they would have been in the maintenance budget. There's the energy use supervisor or advisor, the maintenance supervisor, and the grounds worker. Doesn't that come out of the maintenance budget?
We looked at them as more of managerial positions. So I looked at them as managerial positions, so I put them under administrative and support. Same thing with the grounds worker. It's not in the maintenance budget. I considered that a support position.
And then I see in the maintenance budget, you have like a clerical position, but then an administrative clerical. That's just, you don't consider that support, or is that because that's in the maintenance budget?
Well, it was a maintenance secretary that we're talking about. They have two positions. One's being eliminated. The two in administrative are in the administration department.
I guess my question is, I might be considering those maintenance reductions personnel-wise versus administrative, but it's however it's perceived.
Yeah, I mean, I considered them, the maintenance supervisor I consider managerial, so it was administrative cut in my eyes.
Okay. Just give me a second as I'm coming through, please.
Mr. Medio, did you have a question?
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor. Go ahead.
All right. We'll see how my fellow board members receive this. I sent an email out the other day, and all of you should have read it. And I don't think it's proper budgeting for us to use the sale of property when the property didn't sell. Oak and Main is in here for $500,000. It didn't sell. And we haven't sold 17 West Landis Avenue at $650,000. Now, that's like you being told that you're not getting a Christmas bonus at work, and you go out and spend the money anyhow. So I don't see how we can have that in the budget in this 192, 267, 659 figure.
The Oak and Main property is budgeted as a revenue for next year. So we have until June 30th of 2020 to sell that property.
I'm not arguing the point, and I'm not discussing the point. My point is very simple. It says revenue. That is not revenue. We do not have that money. Now, if we sell it next June, July, next, November, that's fine. But neither one of those properties should be considered revenue at this time. That's just my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Medio. On the county comparison slide, at the bottom we see Millville, Vineland, and Bridgeton, and it says school levy percent, total levy. It showed that 24% Millville, Vineland 22, and Bridgeton 16%.
Correct.
It baffles me that Bridgeton's numbers lower, but received an extra $4.5 million, and we're higher, and we got $14,900 and some dollars. I get the fair formula and everything, and they're saying Bridgeton has raised taxes and Vineland hasn't.
Bridgeton's also districted differently. I'm not going to go into the funding formula.
When we get in these discussions, I mean, the board's tasked with this tough thing, and we would love to go camp out and beat on Trenton's door, and they're going to continue to say you haven't raised taxes enough. My initial question was, there's no guarantee if we did 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 that we're still in the game, because I've learned today that it's not Vineland, it's funding formula. It's not Millville, it's funding formula. So I'm just disappointed. They gave us 14,000, so something's better than nothing. Okay, I get that, but it's like they punch you in the gut when you're down, and I'm just disappointed that the state can sit where they sit without really walking our hallways, walking our streets, and seeing what we have here, because you've heard me say it, 70+% free and reduced lunch. The foreclosures are the majority of the newspaper now. The unemployment rate in the county is higher than ever, so you would think they would share the load across the county, but it was just bizarre how the numbers went from 14,000 and change for Vineland, 360,000 for Millville, an extra $1 million for CC Tech, and then a 4.5 million. Just it blows my mind. And people have asked me, well, who's fighting for us? Do we have an answer, Doctor? Who is fighting for us? Or is it always we're not doing our fair share?
We have been doing our very best to fight for us. We have met with the governor, we have met with the commissioner twice, and we have met with Senator Sweeney. Every time we have met with any of them, we have been told that we are not doing our fair share in raising our taxes, and when we do that, we will be looked at in a different light, and hopefully we will receive funding. Nobody is going to guarantee us anything or put anything in writing, but we have done everything we can to speak to the people we need to speak to. They're telling us it's our obligation. If we don't care about our kids, why should they give us money? And they want to see a good faith effort on our part that we are raising taxes each year above what we have done the prior year.
So our budget is 80+% salaries and benefits. Until we can figure out how to try and get on the same page together, we hear talk about platinum coverage, gold coverage. We're at the top. I would hope, I want this to come out proper, so give me a second. I've learned the union way from 2010 when I got on the board. I have no issues there. I would hope that before we are, 14 million is still 14 million any way you slice it out there, okay? So that's a huge number. I would hope that before we even entertain possibly cutting someone's livelihood, that we might look into opening some contracts and seeing if there's certain givebacks that might save 50% of them. Something's better than nothing. I would love to save them all, but again, that $14 million number. And I don't know what the rules are, but they say it's like uncharted territory, but this is an uncharted $14 million shortfall. And should it be 8 board members, central administration? It should be all of us trying to really figure out how can we get together and save as many jobs as possible. I know about, go ahead, Doctor, I think I know where you're going.
Just for a point of information, the UAW is not legally permitted to bargain away civil service rights. And as you know, the board is well aware, we're working now to close a VEA contract, and the term give back was a struggle to get, and that's business. I'm not blaming anyone. That's the business of bargaining. And people in my 33 years in the business who have spent a lifetime working for something are not as eager to say, I'm on the cusp of retirement benefits and I'm going to give them back to help someone who has just started.
Mr. DeSanto would like a comment, please.
Mr. English, certainly you're entitled to express your concerns and opinions, but matters such as this is extremely sensitive.
I know it is.
It's a subject of collective bargaining, and it really should not be aired out in the public right now. Just a caution.
I thank you for that.
Yeah, so just the point is, I think members have approached me about what can we do, and I'm aware, and talking with legal counsel just to reaffirm my awareness, that they cannot bargain away civil service rights.
Okay.
And the other issues of seniority are very important to people who are getting ready to retire and have worked their whole lives for a benefit level, a salary level, and to come to them and say, let's take care of people who just started, it's tough.
And again, I hope no one took that personal, because that is, I am looking for solutions here, and understand that. There are people out there that have reached out to me and have asked me these questions, and I want, when I say share the load, the rules stink. That's the problem, man. You really, I think every problem has a solution, and how we get there, now we're in the 11th hour, and that's the tough time. And tonight we are tasked again with voting on a 4% tax increase and a lot of budget line items that none of us like. And the ultimate goal is to walk out of here so everyone is happy, but it's not going to happen. And I am struggling, and I'm not sure, I can't speak for each one of my fellow board members, but if I was to support this 4% tax increase, there's no guarantee that anything will get better, and these jobs are still on the chop block. So it puts us in an awkward position, because I understand what we need, but that fluid document, I'm going to want some changes, or come the 29th when we have to vote again, or when is our last vote?
Tentatively, I believe it's the 29th of April.
Just because the vote might be yes tonight from Mr. English, it could quite possibly be no come that date.
Excuse me, Mr. English. That doesn't sound right.
Wow.
Because we have public input, and then the board has time to digest that and decide whether or not they want to make any changes based on that, and then they vote on another day. That's what we did last year.
Historically, it's been about a week later,
Right.
so that the board can entertain the public comments and then make decisions.
I don't have the date in front of me, but I believe it's early May.
Yeah, May 5th or 6th, I think you have it scheduled for.
Mr. English?
Yes.
I think that it is, or should be known by every board member up here, that it's our responsibility to set the tax levy, to exercise our duties in the best way that we can, balancing the needs of our students and the needs of the taxpayers and our employees, right? That's a common thing. Tonight, we face a potential stalemate of split board members supporting a fluid document, 4% tax increase, and those that want to go lower. And like Mr. Musgrove said, you know, it's $237,000. Well, $237,000 is significant when you're talking cafeteria aides or playground aides or whatever the number. So I'm disappointed that on the eve of this vote that we had accolades put out for Mr. Jennings, when the truth of the matter is that when he got reelected this year, he asked Mr. English not to sit on any committees, not to participate in this process. And then tonight, knowing that there was a difficult, life-changing vote up here for people. We had people come up here, and then he says, I resign, and I really care about you guys, and I care about the community. Well, I say you didn't exercise your duty to come out tonight and make a hard decision. And I'm going to support Dr. Gruccio's 4% proposed tax increase. However, I don't like everything in there, and we can change things. Ideas came up. You know, the student, talking about a common sense proposal. How many clubs do we have? How many advisors? Can we combine some of them? It may not sound like a lot of money, but advisors get $4,500. You know, it adds up. So when we're looking at what Mr. English calls the big ticket item, you know, I don't know that that item exists in some form. It's difficult. And I just think that we should support the superintendent and not get deadlocked and then have this go to a county and then have us look more like fools, because I have heard Mr. Russo come up here year after year. And Lou and I have a unique relationship that we agree to disagree sometimes. But one thing I agree is what he's been preaching to this board for a long time, is that, yes, we're flat funded, but we should be increasing the tax levy reasonably, not crazy, not going up, but at that time, during a period of time, board members did not want to do that. They wanted to keep it at 0. And they did not want to do that thing that you guys put right out there, that's why the state says we're in trouble, because we didn't do the sensible thing 10 years ago or 2008. So what, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, we didn't do the reasonable thing. And you know what? He's right. We didn't. But we're here now. I know for certain I can't support a $36 million tax increase. You know, that's not going to happen. But I do suggest that we've been in a lot of meetings with Mr. Mustarell, Dr. Gruccio, and her staff, and that at least we support a 4% tax increase. Get on board with this and have the public input. Deliver on that. Try to come to an agreement, because I know Mary for a lot of years, and she doesn't want to do any of this. Do any of these board members up here want to do any of this? They don't. Trust me. Mr. Walker, no one wants to do what you came up and talked about. But you know what? When the money wasn't there, the votes were taken, and members of this board are guilty of it, that they spent over $1 million on a turf field and then borrowed the money. They spent $65,000 to add cool turf to that field, when a reasonable person would suggest, let's back it down. So when Mr. Walker asked, who's to blame? I'll say, Mr. Walker, we're all to blame. Every one of us up here. Because at some point in time, we've touched this budget. I know I have for 10 years. And I've always tried to do the right thing. So I'm asking the other board members tonight, let's do the right thing. Let's support Dr. Gruccio's budget. Let's get back, have our public comment, and then let's see what we can do to make it work. And that's really all I have to say.
Mr. English? I just wanted to say, as far as the banked cap, it's in reviewing some of the documents I have, it appears that we have over $11 million in banked cap that we would be able to, that we have. But I believe that legally we can, right, we have 11, but we can legally use 7 million. And that's basically you can use 30% of the banked cap without having to take it to a vote. So we could raise 7 million. Just putting it out there, because I think it's important to know that, look, when I look at the numbers, I mean, you know, we can all sit here. I mean, the bottom line is we can't change the history between 2008 and 2016 when we had our first tax increase. And I remember that was my very first year. And I fought hard because the recommended tax increase at that time, I believe, was probably 4%. And my fellow board members, and I respect them, I respect everyone has a different opinion. But when I look at a budget, I'm looking forward. I can't look at just next year. I have to look at the year after and the year after. I mean, it's almost when we do a strategic plan for the district, we're looking forward to see what we can accomplish, to set goals. And we have to do the same thing with this budget. I want to see us continue to provide more for our students. They deserve that. And I think that the parents of our students, our community, is going to be behind us. I think they want what we all want, which is to provide our children with the very best education possible. And if we can do that in a way that is respectful to the taxpayer, and also, but taking into consideration the district's need, and at the same time showing the state that we are serious about gradually increasing so that we get to our fair share of local tax levy, I believe that we're going to be in a much better place. So I too, I mean, if it was up to me, I would be recommending a 6% tax increase. But at the very least, I mean, to not implement the 4% tax increase, I can't imagine even going to the state next year. And remember, next year, we're still looking at a deficit, so we're still looking at cuts. I want to get to the point where we can stop cutting, where we can actually start hiring and providing additional services to our children.
Thank you, Ms. Acosta. Mr. Medio.
I'm sure you're sincere, Ms. Acosta, and I'm going to help you out on that. Number one, in August, I asked for a 2-year plan. Never got anything. Matter of fact, I was told we're trying to get through this year. We don't know what we're going to do. I also have mentioned over the past years to have a hiring freeze. Don't tell me about this is necessary, we have to hire this, we have to hire that. We hired $3 million worth of salaries this year. If we hadn't done that, the budget deficit would be down to 11 million. Now I'm telling you that if you don't implement something, whether you like it or not this year, your deficit next year is going to be 8 million or 9 million again. So you better think long and hard about this. This budget eliminates maintenance, major projects. That means that all of you who are worried about your kids, they're going to be in buildings that a few years from now, they're going to do what they did at Delsey, and they're going to have trash cans out catching the rainwater when it leaks. Well, you're going to have more then. I wasn't told we have it now, but you're going to have more if we don't fix those roofs. Now, does anybody want to hear some cuts? That you want to cut some money out?
Sure.
Okay, first thing, how many Title I coaches do we have? I think we have 2. I would cut another one. 3, I would cut 2. I would get rid of them. I don't know what else to tell you. Somehow or another, I find it really hard to believe that this $336,000 for special ed nurses is something we need. Somehow I think that it'll be what happened before, that somehow or another that'll be used to bring back child study team. Okay? Now, why in the world are we going to have another assistant principal? You should be cutting 6 or 7 assistant principals. There's no doubt about it. Nothing personal, but why are we going to buy 3 buses? You know what we're doing now? We're sending a bus to a town outside of Vineland, driving to another town outside of Vineland with a bus driver, a bus aide, and the costs of the bus. Now, I don't see how that's going to make us any money. I really don't know what to tell you. Now, that's some of the things I would say to cut money. One thing I would say I will not be voting to cut is cutting instrumental lesson teachers at the elementary level. I don't know how you put that in there.
Mr. Sobrano.
When it comes to raising taxes, I take that very seriously. I understand it's necessary, but unless I'm misinformed, I don't think the economy in this county and this community has grown dramatically. I don't think our revenue base has grown dramatically, and I still think we are a district that has special needs. And beyond that, I'm less concerned about the 4% as I am with what seems to be a disproportionate impact at the schools. And that perhaps we could take a second look at that moving forward with the final version of this budget. For example, it's 111 cuts between transportation and schools, and however you want to apportion the other maintenance positions, we're talking about 16 jobs. So I think that's an area that needs a second look.
Thank you.
I also have an issue with our basic skills teachers. I don't know what the total amount of basic skills teachers are right now. 36. But cutting 18, that's significant.
34.
We have 34?
34 basic skills teachers.
Well, cutting down 18, in my opinion, you're taking away a teacher from those children that need it the most. And I really have a problem with that.
So, once again, I hear from everyone, and we've added to a $14 million shortfall, and we haven't really removed. I guess the board's going to be pretty aggressive when they look at the actual line item by line item, because what we approved tonight, you'll probably lock and load on that tax increase number, but I can't see all these cuts passing, which means we're going to have to dig in deeper. The tough thing is, where else do you cut? And what's important to this hand isn't so important to this hand, and vice versa. So you've got this short window to try and figure all that, and it's not an easy task or job. You know, it's Dr. Gruccio, Mr. Mustarell presented us with a balanced budget with severe cuts and a 4% tax increase. I'm coming in here tonight, I was not supporting it, but I will be supporting the tax increase tonight. I will be doing that because I believe that I'm going to give this state a shot, okay? But it's not baseball, 3 strikes, you're out. We have done our due diligence, in my opinion. 2%, we've done a little bit, but we've lost a lot. So I like to challenge the state a little bit more, and I know Dr. Gruccio has done her due diligence talking to the right people, but they still haven't heard us. They keep going back to the one thing that is factual. We have not done our fair share. But the word fair can be defined so many ways, and I'm not agreeing with their way they're defining it. Mr. Fiocchi, I know you've been on this board, this is your 3rd year, and this is your 3rd year chairing the finance. It continues to get worse each year. I'm not familiar with the process you guys did last year, so again, I am free at night more, and I'm thinking that I had said 2 meetings with 4. I really think I would like to be sitting in each meeting with each board member and cut it down. Yeah, we're going to have to meet a little bit more, but we have to dig in a little bit more, and I will apologize to both of you. I know you've worked hard on this. You're not going to like what we're going to say, but for the sake of compromise, I think sometimes we can reach the solution, because I have made my compromise this evening. But again, I won't go into the line items I do not like, but there's several of them. So if no other board member has anything to add.
I have one thing.
Yes.
So if you vote on the 4% tax increase tonight,
Yes.
and then as we're going through all the line items later down the road, and we find out that we could have increased it to 5% and that could have saved 4 or 5 people, you're stuck with the 4%. And I don't feel like tonight we have enough knowledge to vote on that, because we don't have real numbers. So if we increase it 1 more %, that's an additional $200,000, which could save 5 more cafeteria aides.
Mr. DeSanto, can you address that?
Yes.
No, can Mr. DeSanto address that?
No.
She's asking if we're voting on the tax levy tonight.
What is our time frame as far as getting what is our deadline to get this preliminary budget to the county?
It's due to the county on the 20th of this
Sorry?
month. It's due to the county on the 20th of this month.
2-0, the 20th, and so 7 days from now.
Just to go over the dates, we must hand a budget, a budget amount and our tax, which includes a tax increase, to the county by the 20th of this month. Then on April 28th or 29th, I don't have my calendar in front of me, is our public hearing where people again can come and talk about specific line items. Then our final budget vote is May 8th. Okay, so just so you have that timeline in your head.
But once we vote for the specific tax increase, we're kind of locked in on that number.
Correct, that's correct.
So, for example, if we voted, for example, tonight for a 6%, and then we can cut it down, we would have that, a little more flexibility to work with numbers?
You're locked in the 6%.
Yeah, you can't cut it down at that point either.
Well-
We started the budget with a 6%, but the feedback we received from the board didn't support that. So that's why Mr. Musterall presented a budget that has 4%. But whatever tax increase you vote on this evening would remain. You can't go up or down.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to increase the tax increase from 4% to 6%.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Hold on. Time out.
No. She can make a motion.
Yeah, why not? It can?
Just as a point of order, we can change the tax levy all the way up to the final hearing. So you're not stuck with the tax increase at this point.
Mr. DeSanto just said we could.
Well, you can vote on it tonight at 4, then after you have your public hearing, and you have input, and you have adjustments and all that. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. You can vote tonight for 4, but just like with the line items, you're not locked in to the 4 you voted for tonight. But you need to get a figure into the county superintendent, so you can vote tonight for your 4, and then take it from there, and then have the public hearing and do your adjustments and stuff.
But that will change the figure that's due by March 20th if we change the tax, right?
Yeah, yes.
So we're caught in the middle, so you
Yes.
really can't change it. Whatever figure goes to the county on the 20th remains. So whatever tax levy, am I saying the wrong thing? Oh.
No.
Whatever tax levy you,
7 years, you're right.
Again,
This
it's
is a
deemed a
starting point.
preliminary, it's
We have-
deemed a preliminary budget.
Correct. Preliminary budget, which can be changed.
the total amount that goes to the county can be changed?
Yes.
Well, we made a motion, and we have a second.
Now, but just so I can clarify, what Mr. DeSanto had originally said is different. You still want the motion.
Yes.
Ms. Spinelli?
Yes, I would say this, so that we can definitely check it out, but this is our belief, conferring with Mr. Musterell and conferring with Mr. Merkley, we believe this to be the case, but we did not know it was going to be an issue tonight. So I would suggest that you go through with tonight as presented.
At a 4%?
At a 4%, yeah.
They want to proceed with a motion.
No. I would like to compromise. I'll do a 5% on a second.
Hold on, one second. I'm not comfortable with Mr. DeSanto saying we might be able to do something. I would like a firm decision before we make a decision here.
Agreed.
I don't like maybe.
Agreed.
We need a
on that.
yes or no.
I'm I'm sorry, it's just not something that we deal with every day, and I'm not familiar with it with all the years that I've been here. You know, it's not a typical school law issue here. It's budget law, which is a totally separate set of statutes. And I'm sorry, I don't have a specific answer. I'm just giving you my best professional judgment, but I cannot guarantee that.
As board president, it is my recommendation that we stick with what we have in front of us. And if indeed something is to change, and just like your line items are a fluid document, your tax increase is also is fluid.
Doesn't know that.
We don't know that.
Just a point of order. There's been a motion on the board, and it's been seconded. We have to vote on that. Yes.
Thank you.
We have to vote on that, and
Can't withdraw her motion?
she could if she wanted, but, you know,
I feel very strongly that given the huge deficit that we're facing and will continue to face, because it's only going to continue, that we have to do something. And let's show the state that we're serious about contributing our fair share. And I think that the public will support our decision. So I would just, I feel very strongly about this.
This is a legal opinion here, so...
Yeah, but I understand what you're saying, Ms. Acosta, but if you have a 5% increase, you now have higher revenue. We don't have a balanced budget, am I right, Mr. Mustrell? Because you don't have the expenditures coming out of that. So you're approving something that's not balanced, or you're suggesting something that isn't balanced from a budget standpoint.
Yeah, the point of this is to approve the revenue side of the budget. We could always adjust the appropriation side. However, we are prepared for the 4% tax levy increase.
And I do apologize because I was not aware, I don't like being blindsided, so I don't like the board looking like this. This is coming up simply because of the discussion that was presented at the microphone, correct? Or is this something that has been on your mind for the last, since we've been supposedly going to reach out to Dr. Gruccio and Mr. Musterwell with any concerns or ideas?
No, this is basically after listening to the presentation tonight, after listening to public comment, after listening to all of my fellow board members, this is something I strongly believe in. And I put it out there because I believe that
we can table this vote, and we can do a special meeting and meet out here again. It'll be a quick meeting, and let the proper information find out if it can even be done, and if we have to round everybody back up for an hour tomorrow night or something, I would much rather go on that versus I wish we would have, or why didn't we?
but there's a legal motion on the floor, Scott.
What I'm going to ask is, if the motion's withdrawn, then there isn't.
Could I ask just a clarification? Excuse me. If we voted on a 6% tax increase, but the same number, could we then, if we stuck to that number, could we then use the additional money in the tax increase to put jobs back into this budget as long as we stay at the number that's here?
You have to adjust the expenditure side in order to make it balanced.
Right, that's what I'm asking.
And I don't know that the state is accepting this kind of last-minute change when you don't have the expenditure side increased. That's something, you know, yes, by tomorrow, all of these questions would be answered, Mr.
I have a question. When we were originally presented with the 6% budget, all the cuts were the same. Correct or incorrect? How, within reason? As far as
They weren't the
cafeteria.
same, because you're looking at, well, as far as the cafeteria workers, it was. You're looking at some maintenance issues, because what we're talking about here is $530,000, I guess, Scott, 540? I know the 2%.
2% would be, yeah.
So there was 300,000 in, and I'm doing this from memory, from ballpark. There was 300,000 in maintenance that was cut out. So right there, if you took that 300,000, there'd be 200,000 of that left. That 200,000, based upon what was presented in the 6%, is not going to save that many workers.
That's right.
Would be my recollection.
Correct.
Unless you change the line items.
Yeah, unless you change your line items.
We do not have enough information tonight to vote on a 6% tax increase because you guys have not done the work yet for a 6%.
Again, we could always raise it later.
But what I'm saying, tonight, we don't have everything that we need.
Correct.
Mr. English? A great
Mr.
deal of
Sabrina.
work went into to put together this budget by Mr. Mustarell and his staff. I don't believe that we should be, by acclamation, making these kind of changes tonight. We should move ahead with the 4%,
Especially
have a vote
when-
on that and go from there.
Especially when an hour ago, board members were saying they're not raising taxes, not even 2%. So now we're going back and forth between 6 and 5. We need to stick with the 4% tonight.
That's my recommendation as well. We have a motion on the floor, and if indeed the motion is still on the floor, then it has to go to vote. So if the motion has...
Mr. English, I call the question.
Yes.
Just make sure you clarify what the motion is. Make sure you clarify what the motion is so everybody understands what they're voting yea or nay on.
I would like to hear the motion again from Ms. Acosta. Ms. Acosta, I would like to hear the motion again, please.
The motion is to increase the tax levy from 4%, which is the 4% that was presented tonight in the budget, to 6%.
And the second was,
And I will make the second that I want some of those jobs put back in there.
that's not the motion. The motion is...
I'll second it.
A 6%. Do I have a roll call, please? Mr. Mustarell.
Ms. Acosta?
Yes.
Mr. Fiocchi?
I came here tonight fully prepared to support 4%, but I don't think we have enough information. And as Mr. English suggested, I would love for every single board member to again sit down and look through this budget line by line and see where we can cut to save jobs. My vote will be no.
Mr. Holmes?
My vote is no because there's no guarantee that those jobs will be back because we're raising taxes 6%.
Mr. Medio?
My vote, when I came here, was going to be no for the budget and the 4%. Now, in spite of hearing some things that I really don't appreciate hearing, I think that I've been told that this raising it to 4% might help us. Now, raising it to 6% isn't going to do any more than the 4%. You're not going to save any of these jobs. You're not going to do anything but kick the can down the road, and, you know, it's not going to work. Now, everybody here understands English. I told you before, I'll show you places to save $1 million, maybe $2 million. You want to listen? That's fine. You don't want to listen? Then you'll be in the same boat next year if you're still on this board. You have to change the way things are done. I don't know if you could save any of these jobs, really. And next year you're going to have even more jobs you're going to have to try and save. And you better start doing it now, yesterday. Now, I'll vote yes on the 4%. Right now, I'll vote no on the 6%. And if I get a lot of things that I like, I get to hear a lot of things that I like over the next month and a half, I'd consider the 6%. My vote's no.
Mr. Sabrina?
No.
Ms. Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Ulrich?
My vote's going to be no. I'm going to stick with the 4%, and that's what I was prepared to vote on tonight, was 4%.
Mr. English?
No.
Motion does not pass.
At this time, do we have any more questions or comments before we get to the superintendent's recommendation? Seeing none, Dr. Gruccio?
I would like to recommend approval of the 2019-20 school district preliminary budget for submission to the State of New Jersey Department of Education as follows. General budget, $167,101,367, with a local tax levy of $24,703,562. Special revenue of $25,166,292. Total budget being $192,267,659, and the total local tax levy, $27,703,562.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please, Mr. Mustarell.
Ms. Acosta?
Reluctantly, I will vote yes to the 4%. We need to move this budget.
Mr. Fiocchi?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Medio?
Yes.
Mr. Sabrana?
Yes.
Ms. Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. English?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. I'd like to recommend the approval of our local tax levy in the amount of $24,703,562.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please, Mr. Mustarell.
Ms. Acosta?
Yes.
Mr. Fiocchi?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Medio?
Yes.
Mr. Sabrana?
Yes.
Ms. Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. English?
Yes.
I would like to recommend approval of the maximum travel amount in accordance with NJAC 6A:23A-7.3 for the 2019-20 school district budget in the amount of $26,853. The travel amount spent to date in the 2018-19 school year budget is $11,954.
Mr. Medio.
What does this travel expense cover?
Want to explain? Scott?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Okay.
This is the travel expenses budgeted in the Code 580s, and it's basically mileage and other meals, travel expenses that we have throughout the district.
Is this the travel to conferences and meetings like that?
Yes, sir.
There won't be many conferences or meetings that people will be traveling to.
Any other questions or comments? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Hello?
Second.
Roll call, please, Mr. Mustarell.
Ms. Acosta?
Yes.
Mr. Fiocchi?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Medio?
Yes.
Mr. Sabrana?
Yes.
Ms. Spinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. English?
Yes.
That's the end of my recommendations.
Thank you, Dr. Gruccio. At this time, anyone from the public is welcome to speak at the podium. You have 5 minutes. Please state your name when you get up there, please. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rebecca Allen, and I'm the band teacher across the 8 elementary schools. Being that the elementary band and string positions are on the chopping block, I do feel that it is necessary to speak on behalf of the music program. I just would like to point out that the elementary instrumental program alone, not including the middle and high school, is the largest program in the district with over 350 students. That is approximately 1 out of every 4 students in 4th and 5th grades that play an instrument. I would also like to take this time to invite all board members and administration to the end of the year elementary district band concert. It will be held here on Wednesday, May 29th at 7 p.m., where we will attempt to fit the 200 students that I have up here on the stage. Also, you can feel free to stop by on any Wednesday right here at the Landis Building from 4 to 5 o'clock to listen to our rehearsals. At the end of the year, the performance, you will witness the discipline and skills developed over the course of the year by young beginner musicians. You will have the opportunity to hear the feeder program to our middle and high school levels and the Performing Arts Academy. Please join us to experience firsthand the hard work and dedication of our Vineland students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. English, what was that date again?
May 29th.
29th? And what time?
7 o'clock.
Good evening. My name is Vera Boyko, and I am the teacher of strings across the 8 elementary schools. I would like to take this time to invite the board members, Dr. Gruccio and administration, to the All-City District String Concert, which will be held on Tuesday, May 28th at 7 p.m. at Wallace School. This invitation, the save the date, features a photo from the elementary string program on this very stage, and as you will see, it is filled to capacity. This concert also features the middle and high school strings, and you will have an opportunity to see, hear, and experience the feeder program to the Performing Arts Academy. We hope you will consider spending an evening with us and find value in the discipline of music making. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Am I permitted to go? Am I permitted to
What
hand?
time did you say that was?
It is at 7 p.m.
They're both at 7?
Bouncing up and down. But I never heard that, as I said.
Thank you, Scott.
It's such a specialized area. Never anticipated this. I didn't think 4% was an increase.
I didn't expect it.
Every plea was passionate.
Do we have anyone else this evening?
Good evening. My name is Ashley Pasito. I am a special education teacher at Delago Preschool. I didn't come here expecting to talk, but just after hearing everything that was discussed tonight, I feel like I just wanted to come up and share my opinion. As a special education teacher with the young kids, we do have our CST team and our PERT team. More and more kids are coming in needing assistance and needing help, and it's only getting worse as they're getting older. I rely on my in-class resource room teachers and CST to help me, especially being my first year. I don't know what I would do without them, so cutting them is definitely going to be detrimental to the preschool program amongst the other grades. As far as the food service workers go, I just know personally how much food we throw away on a day-to-day basis. We are not allowed to send food back to the kitchen, so if a kid opens up their bag and eats the apples out of the bag, we have to throw away the milk, the muffin, the spork, the straw, everything that's in that bag gets tossed. Complete waste of food. I know I have family members who also work in Vineland Board of Ed in food service. The food that these kids are given on a daily basis is ridiculous to me. A lot of them are eating for free, which is great, and I'm glad that we can provide that for them, but they don't need gourmet meals. They don't need 15 choices of food every day. I think that we're providing way more than we need to. I think that it should be a lot less food. They don't need that many choices. I mean, 8th graders are not eating gourmet salads. That's just not a reality. That's not what they're eating. And like I said, we throw away so much food in the preschool level. So maybe that's an area where you guys can look into and see if there's a way to save money there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Lou Russo, Avis Court in Vineland. And you're right, Mr. Ulrich, we've been through this so many times before. Remember when it was at Plum Street and you would just hear crickets in the background? There'd be like 4 people and, 10 of 12 of you up there. But sincerely tonight, ladies and gentlemen of this board, you've taken the biggest financial step that this board has made in my lifetime here in the Vineland Public Schools. I want to sincerely thank you tonight. You did the right thing, and I think we really should. This is the largest investment that this board has given to increase the revenue here for our students in 20, 25 years. I sincerely thank you, and I think we all should too. Just a few questions about what's called banked cap. That's really hard to figure out. I've been trying to figure it out for 10 years. My understanding is that certain costs are exempt from the 2% property tax cap. The biggest ticket item is health insurance. So when our health insurance rates increase by $3, $4, or $5 million a year, that doesn't count in that 2% cap. You could take every bit of that health insurance increase and pass that off into the local tax levy. And respectfully, I think that's where we have failed since 2008 in the new school funding formula. Everyone in the community understands how much health insurance has went up because theirs does too, right? We're paying more, you're all paying more, and so is the community. So I think the community can understand that. Because health insurance is increased, we have to increase the local tax levy. And that would have given us, I believe that banked cap, the last 3 some years, I think currently we have 900,000, the year before was like 3, the year before 3. I have it as approximately $7 million. And Megan Greenfield, who's our great math coach whiz, has a nice spreadsheet that has the real numbers, and we'd be happy to share that with all of you. That's from NJEA research, and that money those statistics come from the State Department of Education. It was remarked in the budget that sometimes salary and benefits are going up $3 to $4 million a year, and that's 80% of the budget. But that's not really a hard number, because just as an example, when we began bargaining back in January of 2018, it seems so long ago now, we had a list of people who worked here, and they cost X amount of dollars. Here we are a year and like 3 or 4 months later. So many of those people have went and retired. You've replaced many of them with lower cost people, or we've chosen wisely maybe not to replace all of them. The net savings to the board in that time period is just a little over $2 million. So the VEA's already paid for those increases. We've paid it already in the people who left. So we do, do our share, and the amount of money that we're paying for health insurance has increased. But there was something else that I believe was said about the clubs, and I really appreciate the young lady, one of our students, who came up and talked about that. But I just want to clarify, the club advisors did not make, I think it was like 30, someone had said 35. It's 720. They get $24 an hour for 30 meetings, and I'm sure that's, not a big ticket item, but it is an area of compromise. So I just wanted to summarize that it's time to invest. The Vineland Public Schools are still the best school system in this area. I think in South Jersey, you'd be hard-pressed to find another one. And we need to be proud about what we do. We need to be proud of what you did tonight. I'm proud of you. And I think our city's going to be proud when they see the school board invest in this community, because it's the best story we have in this city is what goes on in our schools every day, every year. We should be proud of it, and we should celebrate it. Nobody's ever come up here and said, don't do this. You've only had people in the last 15, 20 years asking you, hey, let's do more for our kids. No one's ever come up here and said, let's do less. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Russo.
There were a couple things mentioned earlier, just to clarify, in fairness to those who've spent many, and many more hours planning. We've lost 121 positions in the last 3 years, which I think refers a little bit to what Mr. Russo was getting at. And with all due respect to a 2-year plan, a lot of these people haven't slept since they've heard from me this month. To put a 2-year plan together of what we're going to cut you're going to cause like heart attacks. You can't just throw out people's lives and say 2 years from now, you know, this is going to be it. It's been a hard month for people I've met with personally and heard their stories, and we're trying to work through that. It's easy to say things like assistant principals. If you're managing 800 children or 600 children, and the behavior issues you're going to have in a given day in any public school, it's impossible. And what I've said to people who've come in the office, and I would say to the board with all due respect, this is impossible. Everything you're going to hear that you want to save or cut, there's people who can defend it, and there's people who are living it. How we got here, like Mr. Allwood said, we're here. It's now we're here, what happened in the past, what we bought, what we didn't buy. But people's lives are at stake, and their careers, their families. It's very, very difficult. And I don't think anyone up there is going to come up with something that the central office people did not discuss for hours and hours. Mr. Mostrell's done a magnificent job in his role. We look forward to Mr. Merkley coming in. It is impossible to forecast and plan everything you'd like to do. I know Mr. Walker asked about the planning. It's been going on. It's been going on for years and years. We knew this day would come, and now it affects people. I think Mr. Medio said to me a couple years ago, until you affect people, nobody's going to realize how intense it is. And perhaps that's true. 121 positions weren't people. But they are services being cut to kids. They are being cut from kids, but it wasn't a person, so you may not have heard as much about it. It's an impossible situation. We put hours and hours and hours and hours into this. There's no answer that's satisfactory.
Thank you, Dr. Rossi. Do we have anyone else this evening?
Good evening, board members. My name is Lisa Arena, and I'm a resident of Vineland. No one could be prouder of being able to have spent 33 years working for Vineland Public Schools. I believe in our schools. I believe in what we do and how we educate our students and how we want all of them to be able to thrive when they leave Vineland Public Schools. I know the decisions that you make are astronomical and weigh heavy on you every evening. I know Dr. Rossi spends hours and hours trying to balance everything out and get the best possible outcome for every individual. Coming to the podium, I was just sitting there thinking, I was hired in February 33 years ago by the district, and I believe Dr. Valentine was superintendent at the time. And I came in, I graduated college in January, started working, I believe it was January 3rd, as a substitute teacher in a basic skills position, because at the time the governor said Vineland Public Schools was significantly low in the number of basic skills teachers that it had representing the population of students that they had, with the amount of disabilities or learning challenges that they had at the time. So the district hired about 8 basic skills teachers in February of that year, and most of them started out as substitutes until their paperwork came in from the state. And we all started about the same time. And at that point, there was a real influx, and we were working with Mrs. Adair was here at that time, and we were looking at the quartiles of growth in our students to see how much growth the students were making because they were receiving that additional help. I see the basic skills teachers as invaluable, and I think we need to put money into our neediest students just like we do our high-achieving students. We offer many opportunities to high-achieving students. We need to help those that are struggling as well, because we want everyone to be able to thrive in Vineland Public Schools. We want our students to thrive and our staff to thrive and have those opportunities for growth and development for everyone. Our aides that we have in our building, you might say, oh, they're only a cafeteria playground aide. They are a friend to a child who is lonely. They are eyes and ears when a principal or a vice principal can't be in the cafeteria 24/7 watching children. You're either in the cafeteria, you're on the playground. There's over 100 children in the cafeteria. There's over 100 children on the playground. There's 2 or 3 aides with the children that are eating. You're checking who can have peanuts, who can't have peanuts, who has to stay away from certain foods, who can't have dairy. They know all these things. They know the students' allergies, who can have what. When they see children sharing lunches at a table and they run over to say, oh no honey, that has dairy in it, you can't have it, or that's a peanut product, you can't have it. Those children need supervision. Our teachers have duty-free lunches. Who is going to be in the cafeteria with those children? One principal and one assistant principal can't watch 100 children, know everybody's food allergies, know who can eat what can happen in that room for 3 hours while lunches go on every day. Those people are a lifeline, and for the amount of work they do, their pay isn't commensurate with it. We see in the school on a regular basis them sticking their necks out, helping children, buying gifts for children at Christmas time, bringing in clothes for kids who need things. They are a godsend to our students. So I understand that you have really difficult challenges in the next month, month and a half to face, but I ask you to think about the impact on our neediest of students. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else this evening? Seeing none, do I have a motion for adjournment?
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. What's that?
She said she wanted to comment.
It's not on here tonight. It's not on our agenda. It's not on our agenda. Sorry?